first Sixers offseason without some guy named Daryl Morey in over 6 years. What is that even going to look like? I mean, we heard from Bob Myers and Josh Harris, but you could actually chalk it up to half that press conference actually said nothing. So I'm going to go to one of the best in the business. Paul Hudrick from Liberty Ballers joining us here to talk more about the 76ers and their offseason on 97.3 ESPN. Paul, welcome in. Appreciate you making the time today. How's it going?
It's going. Beautiful day outside, and long offseason ahead.
Well, I know you got kids, so I won't keep you forever because you can get the kids outside so they can burn off some energy as they sleep tonight. For you, what was the biggest takeaway from that press conference the other day? Because as I said before you came on, it felt like half the press conference, they didn't really say a lot. Like there was a lot of just hemming and hawing and Bob Myers giving you coach talk.
Well, so for me, I'll start with that. I didn't feel like Myers was necessarily being evasive. I thought it was more, they just fired Daryl Morey 2 days ago. They don't know who's going to replace him, so they don't have those answers yet, right? And the other thing is, too, he's still doing some fact-finding. Like, he had just been in Chicago, met with the, people that are still employed in the front office, and, he's still talking to them. He's still got to talk to the players. He's still got to talk to some coach. Like, he still has a lot of work to do before he even gets to like the interview process of finding these candidates. So to me, I think it was more about that. He didn't want to speak in like these definitive terms about, which direction the roster goes and all that. The biggest things that stood out to me, one, it seems obvious Bob Myers will have a bigger role here than he does with the other Harris Blitzer teams, the Devils or the Commanders. There's like a soccer team in there too. I don't know much about it. But
Crystal Palace FC.
There it is, Crystal Palace. So
I'm here to help.
Thank you. I appreciate it. But yeah, so I do think it's pretty clear Bob Myers will have more of a say with the Sixers, but that also makes sense, right? Because he is, say what you want about the guy, won 4 championships in Golden State. I get he got Steph Curry, and that was a pretty big help for that, but he still did it, and he still got this experience. So I understand that part of it. And then I thought it was interesting that there were no real platitudes for Joel Embiid or Paul George. And then in the end, Derek Bodner asked a very good question about the idea of the big three. And if Bob Myers himself believes that model can work. And to be honest with you, that might've been the only time where he said something kind of telling, because it sure seemed like he seemed to think it wasn't, but he also thought, hey, maybe if we get a new executive who is creative on the margins and can figure all these other things out, maybe that can work, but maybe it can't, because clearly depth is very important. And then the last thing I would say is the draft. One, Bob Myers saying he would like to have the new person in before the draft, which I think is good. And then two, him also saying that he is going to allow this front office, sans Daryl Morey, that has done a very good job in the draft. He's going to kind of let them do their thing. And then when that night comes, it'll be the new executive's decision, I would imagine, but you will have the scouting department that's done, that drafted VJ Edgecombe, that drafted Tyrese Maxey, that has found, diamonds in the rough like Isaiah Joe, Paul Reed, and those kind of guys.
So, first of all, the only reason why I remember is Crystal Palace continually is because there is actually an episode of Welcome to Wrexham, if they ever watched that show, where like Harris has kind of like a cameo, but it's like a cameo because they're using him. So they do this really quick. So they do this list on if anybody's ever watched the show, it's hilarious. The new season just dropped, I think, this weekend or next week, I forget, but it's on my list. And there's one episode where like Ryan Reynolds and Rob McElhenney are explaining how rich the other owners are of these teams compared to them. And they're like, people think we're rich because we're on TV. And like they start showing like, it was like, Josh Harris owns Crystal Palace. This is his financial worth. They started showing like all the other like Europe, like all the other European soccer teams, like how their owners are like so rich, it's like disgusting. And they made like a pie chart for the show, and they're like, and we're down here. Yeah. So that's the only reason why I always remember it, because like he has a cameo where they like do like one of those like bubbles like Josh Harris arrow,
right.
Like this rich guy. He
is a very wealthy man. A very
wealthy man. But back to the Sixers. But to the point about Josh Harris, I felt like there were so many times where it was like he's trying to give an honest answer and he's just so awkward. He doesn't really know how to have like a normal conversation. And I just have to ask you, Paul, you've been in a lot of these press conferences, you've been in a lot of these situations. What is your take on Josh Harris in 2026? Obviously, he's been the owner now for 14 years, I believe, 15 years. So what is your take on him at this point?
I don't know. I honestly don't have like a really good answer. I'll say that I think there's a reason that Bob Myers is here, and there's a reason why Bob Myers got most of the questions and did most of the talking. Because I think this, and look, if I as a Sixers fan, I think you should feel better about that fact. Because look, if it's going to be a situation where maybe Josh Harris is not going to, not take a step back, but where he is going to trust Bob Myers more to kind of oversee that. And, clearly Josh Harris will still have a say. He made it clear he approved the Jared McCain trade. That was not just Daryl Morey on an island. They did not throw him under the bus. He said, no, we stamped that decision. Bob Myers was part of the team that stamped that decision. So yeah, I mean, look, to me, it's always been a little strange that he owns the New Jersey Devils and the Washington Commanders. There's just no way around it. It's a little odd to me that the owner of the Philadelphia 76ers also owns a direct rival of the Philadelphia Flyers and a direct rival of the Philadelphia Eagles. That's always been a little odd to me. And I think sometimes fans wonder, the Commanders seem to be the team that he really has wanted all along. So, like, I kind of get the tug and pull of fans feeling like, well, does Josh Harris really want to win? Does he view this as just an asset? I get all that. And I thought his luxury tax answer was, how do I put it? I mean, to an extent, it's true. They've done it. They've gone over the luxury tax before. That is a thing they have done. He was very willing to do it with the Jimmy Butler trade. They were willing to, ownership at least was willing to re-sign Jimmy Butler and Tobias Harris, go over the tax to do that. Obviously, some other stuff for other reasons it didn't work out that way. And there's been other instances. So, I think the thing that Morey said and the thing that Myers has said, and it's kind of worded carefully, it's we can go over the luxury tax if the move makes us a contender. So I think there's a little bit of, man, I have the ability to do that, but if I do that, I better deliver a damn contender or it's going to be my job. So it was interesting. I mean, they haven't done it since 2022. We can just put that out there. 2023, they had a really good team that went to Game 7 with Boston. Probably should have won that series. They did nothing at that deadline. They stayed below the tax at that deadline. They actually made a trade, trading Matisse Thybulle, taking back Jalen McDaniels to get under the luxury tax instead of finding a way to improve the team. So yeah, I mean, there's a lot of moves that suggest maybe that's not always the case. So yeah, I mean, like I said, for me, I can certainly understand why fans have doubts about Josh Harris. I mean, they haven't made it past the second round. They haven't been a good enough team. And so I think this was Josh Harris's lever to pull was, okay, well, let's move on from Daryl Morey and let's see if we can get someone in here who can figure it out.
Paul, like you said, they're looking to get the replacement for Morey, preferably before the draft. But the Sixers do have some contracts coming up, like Quentin Grimes, Kelly Oubre, that have to be decided upon, and also the whole free agency has to be decided upon. Is that just taking a back burner right now until they find the guy who can replace Morey, or is that still in the organization being talked about at all?
I'm sure it's being talked about. I'm sure they're evaluating where those two guys, like those are probably the big prominent names that could, like, I can't imagine Andre Drummond's back. Kyle Lowry's probably going to retire. So like Oubre and Grimes are the two big names. Oubre being a pretty important piece of the team, being a starter, Grimes being the sixth man. I'm sure those evaluations are happening with the current front office and coaching staff. But at the same time, you can't even negotiate with free agents until after the finals. Free agency doesn't even start till July. So they do have time in regards to both of those guys. They have bird rights on both of those guys, which is helpful. If it were me and I were running the Sixers, I would be much more keen on bringing back Oubre than Grimes, because I thought Grimes was pretty disappointing down the stretch of the season, and in the playoffs he had one good game when they really could have used that depth and really could have used more scoring punch off the bench. So again, like I said, I'm sure it's being evaluated. I'm sure it's being talked about, but that's the kind of thing that I think the kind of order of operations, like draft first, get through that, and then once you have a clearer picture, and look, at the draft, trades could go down. Who knows what could happen? Then maybe you get a clearer picture of how the roster looks, and then maybe that informs your decision a little bit even more on Oubre and Grimes. And then also the new executive, right? If the new executive comes in and says, hey, I really love Quentin Grimes, I think we can get more out of him, maybe he's back. But, who knows what happens between now and July.
Talking with Paul Hudrick, Editor-in-Chief of Liberty Ballers, here on Hanging with Hennig on 97.3 ESPN. You mentioned about the whole, some of those guys. I want to backtrack to the Kelly Oubre thing, because I think Kelly Oubre has shown that he has really evolved as a basketball player, and it's kind of wild to say that he might actually be one of your most important players. I feel like bringing him back, getting him locked in beyond just a couple of years might be one of the smartest investments, because of the fact that he's a lot closer to Maxey and VJ Edgecombe age-wise than a guy like Paul George is. And whenever Paul George is no longer here, right? Because Kelly is like 28?
30.
I believe. Oh, he just turned 30? Okay, well, maybe he's not as young as I thought I was, but maybe it's the color hair. But still, I mean, I feel like he's a guy that has more staying power on a roster that has young guys on the come-up, whereas Paul George, a couple of years, he won't even be here anymore.
Yeah, well, and I think the thing with Oubre too is, look at right now, Joel Embiid keeps talking about continuity, right? Like I want more guys here who have been here. Kelly Oubre is the third longest tenured Sixer, which is insane, but it's true. And him and Embiid do have a good relationship. They work well on the court together. They play well off of each other. The only thing with Oubre in the playoffs that was disappointing is, look, he had the best 3-point shooting season of his entire career, and he just didn't have that shot in the playoffs. That was the big thing. But I thought otherwise, like, he played really tough defense on Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum on his opportunities against Brunson. He plays hard. He tracks down loose balls. He'll mix it up. He's tough. Like, he does bring some of those intangibles. To me, it's about I would agree. If it were me, I would be looking to bring him back. You have his bird rights. There are ways to do it. But for me too, I would be maybe looking at, maybe not next year. I mean, next year he probably still starts, but in the coming years, looking for a guy that can take his spot in the starting lineup. Because I think Oubre, for all he does, maybe he's not a 35 to 40 guy. Maybe he should be more of like a 25 to 30 guy, or even 20, 25. And then he brings that energy, and it's maybe a little bit more impactful when he can do it. And it's as more of like an option than a guy who has to play, if that makes sense. So, no, I agree, Josh. Like, he has matured a great deal here in Philadelphia. I think, he's now a father twice over. I think some of that has an impact on him, because when he came here, from his first kind of media availabilities when he first got here to when we just talked to him on Sunday, like it's a different guy. It really is a different player, a different person. And I do think he's got some pretty good leadership qualities. I do think the young guys, like him and kind of what's the word I'm looking for? Kind of gravitate towards him. Because I think, to your point, Josh, he almost seems younger. So I think in a weird way, some of the younger guys gravitate towards him because of that. So yeah, I mean, like I said, he would be a guy of all the guys who could leave. He would be the guy that I would be looking to retain more than any of them.
Paul, before we let you go, I wanted to ask you, because, everybody's on the trade machines, everybody's doing their thing, trying to figure out what are realistic moves the Sixers can make. Like, everyone's trying to make a trade. Bill Simmons on his podcast, he threw out 4 trades, right? 2 of them probably would never happen unless, it was the end of the world, right? But still, like, everyone's trying to figure out how to change this team, how to make this team. So is there a move, or is there a player that you're saying in the real world, this is legitimate?
Well, Bill Simmons is trying to get Embiid off the Sixers after he just beat the Celtics in 7 games. That makes sense. No, but I don't see a realistic Joel Embiid trade. I don't see, because I just don't know how you can get the proper elements. Like, you're not going to get proper value for him because of the contract, because of the injury issues. You shouldn't attach a draft pick to get off the contract because then you're just hurting the rebuild. You're hurting Tyrese Maxey. You're hurting VJ Edgecombe. You're hurting your ability to build the team down the road. And then a trade where you're just giving him away doesn't really help either because then you're actively making the team worse for Maxey and Edgecombe next. Tyrese Maxey's 25. He's 26. You're going to just punt a year of Tyrese Maxey's prime, which is part of the problem with Joel Embiid, right? Everyone complains about it, and it's fair. Like, they punted a couple years of Joel Embiid's prime. You want to punt a couple years of Tyrese Maxey's prime now? That doesn't seem very logical. So, and then the other, like, because I think the big thing too, just a little off topic, but like the way the Sixers can be extremely competitive, obviously hitting the margins is very important. But the other thing is, if VJ Edgecombe takes that leap and becomes that star in the next couple years, that could change everything. That could change the outlook of the entire team. So for me, what I think is going to happen is I think all four of those big guys, the four quote unquote stars are back. And you just have to do, the new executive is just going to have to do, they're going to have to nail the pick at 22. They're going to have to use some other assets. You know, they have the as of right now, they're under the tax. So they could use the non-taxpayer MLE, which is a pretty good chunk of cash. And you don't have to use that on one player. You can use that on multiple players. And then again, they have the ability to re-sign Oubre using his bird rights. So, I mean, they have avenues to get better. I just don't see a path with Joel Embiid. And like the Sabonis one drives me bonkers because I don't get it at all. Like everyone in Philadelphia, oh, Joel Embiid can't perform in the playoffs. Do you want to look at what Domantas Sabonis has done in the playoffs? You want to bring that here? Like, and a guy can't play defense. Like and he was hurt all last year. So it's like, I don't get why, like, what is the point of doing that trade other than to just get rid of Joel Embiid? And I don't think the organization feels that way. I don't think the guys in the locker room feel that way. So I don't, never say never, because you never know. Maybe a desperate team, someone like the Warriors, or a team that's kind of like hanging on to like their last thread, they get aggressive and throw you a package that helps the team moving forward. But I don't see that happening, and I think that's the only way that they would even move on Joel Embiid.
For more 76ers coverage, check out Liberty Ballers. Paul Hudrick, he's the editor-in-chief over there for all your Sixers. It's going to be a crazy – they still got to hire somebody for the front office work under Bob Myers. They got a draft coming up in, 6 weeks here right after the NBA Finals. Free agency, that's going to drop before you know it. So it's going to be a busy offseason, and Paul Hudrick and Liberty Ballers got you covered on all points. Paul, great stuff today. Appreciate you jumping on.
Yeah, anytime, man. You got it.